So I made the offer to copy the illustration on page 16 because it's so interesting, and often an illustration is very helpful in understanding something so utterly alien to our normal understanding. But what he put up here is the general information field, the individual information field. Here we have the body information field, and up here, and this is very important, it is quantum entanglement. So it is non-local. Our body, our mind is non-local. And that, I would say, is the first time I hear anything like that. Non-local mind. Mind is usually always localized because we are stuck in I would say, vocabulary of classical physics, even if we don't believe it anymore. And that means that when you go down to the local level, this is what you get. You get the body. The body is localized, and this is called the bioenergetic field of the body, the BEF. Here we have information fields, and remember, despite what is the fact in common society and everywhere, information in quantum mechanics is much more important than energy, matter, and localization. Information beats it all. And here we go down to matter part. So matter starts here, and then we have biophotons, cell membrane potential, and you see this is the energy. This is the first time I see an explanation of the chi prana. It is the going from matter to information and vice versa. How can matter change into information? Well, that is the conclusion of quantum mechanics and nothing else. That's the most pertinent foundation in quantum mechanics. So it is the fluctuation of information into matter and matter into information that is the prana. Now we no longer have to add an extra energy to our bodies. The problem actually of many yoga gurus like Sajjanga and Iyengar having difficulties explaining for Westerners. It's a common sense expression in India. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to use it. Everyone uses it. It's deeply ingrained in the literature of everyone. Even a simple farmer will know what prana is, and he will know what chakra is. It would be like finding someone in Sweden who doesn't know what a head is or an arm is. Everyone knows about these things. But they defy Western explanations. We don't have any free slot, open space in where to put prana, chakra, or akasha. Schmieke makes that possible, and he also associate to other scientists in the area. Henry Stapp being very interesting, I will look into him. I heard the name many times before. Very interesting. And this also connects to this. Why are the chakras? How can they exist? Why can't we operate and take them out? Well, it's because they are not on the matter side. They are on the more important information side. They are what causes matter to come into existence. That's a whole different ballpark. That's not the same thing. Although matter and information are very similar, there is a difference in before and after. It is also very interesting that frequency, akasha, is a sort of sound, and that frequencies can both be healing, but they also carrier of what we used to think was the activity of the neurons in the brain. And this is something we discussed earlier with Richard E. Lind. We have become de-intellectualized, not de-bodilized, because the modern body, as an idea of a fleshy lump they can put everywhere, is not correct according to neither quantum mechanics nor the Vedic understanding of the body-mind system. That is very interesting. Of course, our dogma is very, very strong. Everyone believes the body is some fleshy, unnecessary part. But we know from Richard E. Lind, all cultures bar none saw the seat of the soul in the body, not the head. And he argues for, and proves, I would say rather well, that the ascent of consciousness was also a transcendental move away from everything of reality. And that is a bit problematic, because we are no longer in the area where from everything comes. So we have to make do with secondary things, and we call them rationalities that are fixed, logics, thinking strategies, moving strategies, which is the same thing. And here we also see how the movement or the frequency, it is the reason for the different colors of the chakra, because a color is a frequency. And the frequencies are important because they participate in the whole universal global information field. They are the constructors of what the good balance in the body is. Let's have a little look, see if we can borrow color for a moment here while we end up. I can hold the camera and you can sort of sit down here. Thank you very much. Please have a seat. We start there. I noticed when I went on the tram here that I felt rather sick while sitting on the chair. And then I noticed all the chairs were tilting backwards. How devious! Because that makes thinking almost impossible. When you are in a position where you get out of balance, the system of thought will tend to be stopped. So in this model, the thinking goes on in this area. This is the body-mind-soul system. And if the body is out of balance, the effect on thinking will be immediate and devastating. And this is shown very clearly from electroencephalograms and functional magnetic resonance inductors, the MRIs, fMRIs. They show when the body balance is out, thinking stops immediately. You cannot think. After that, you only repeat what you thought before. And this repetitive mood actually paralyzed. So nice, I thought about this morning. It's another way of saying the left hemisphere in the terms of Ian McGilchrist. How does he define the left hemisphere? Well, it's the part of the brain that do things that we know. So in the beginning, when we learn something, be it practical or be it more intellectual, the right hemisphere is engaged. But once we learned it, it goes to automatic mode. It is then the left hemisphere, and it takes a lot less energy because it's automaticized. This is very similar to this process. If we're not in balance, we cannot think new things. Remember when we showed how a tilt in the floorboard made it impossible to do futuring, think in the future, because you were tilting in the wrong direction, backwards. The opposite holds also for retention. If you're tilted forward, it's very hard to think about memories. If a body is not in balance, if for instance he is leaning backwards just a little bit like that, he will put the whole system out of balance, and he will effectively block what is called in the yogic tradition the chakra and their kosha. In the explanation of Marcus Schmieke, it is that the informational field have no longer access to material things. That means that thinking stops. You can no longer project. The same thing could happen if you adjust your balance out of the sitting bones. It will both happen, and it's rather unpleasurable. It is like being a zombie, I feel sometimes. Going back to the balance, see if we can find it. There is a relaxation in the system, so there's a differentiation in the body. What is hard here is to observe how thinking changes once you're balanced. I believe that you won't change until you see that there's a change in thinking. The reason for that is that we regard thinking the most important in our culture, and sometimes we could be willing to give the body up. But that is absolutely wrong. Not from the point of view of the body, but thinking actually takes place in this area and nowhere else. This is what we know. So once you make that connection, I think there is no going back. You will change. It will take its time, or will you put more and more of your energy in trying to get to a more balanced state. Now you can turn to the left so you sit in a silhouette. No, we start here. I would show also the throat chakra. The throat chakra is equivalent to the 7th cervical down here. And when I heard that, I thought it was odd, because that is also the split according to John Appleton and Jan Eiskens. It is taking place here. It's a lucky coincidence. It means that this part of the body is splitted off, going to the long finger on both sides, and they are a separate unity, and it needs to be imaged that way. And imaged or prime is the way of awakening the chakras. And I will show the chakras if you move to the camera for an instance, Kalle, sorry. And I will see if I can get the whole body. If you back as much as you can to the wall, if you can get the whole of you. Well, this is rather tough. But what you can do, and recommended, is that you start thinking about and seeing the different chakras. These are the chakras of the soul. Those are the ones that are higher up. There are 4 of them. The on top is the crown chakra. The second one is the intellectual chakra. It's actually situated in the head. But remember, this is body and soul together. It doesn't make that division. Here we have the throat chakra. It's the chakra of verbalization. It is also the chakra of thinking. Go down to the heart. Here we have a very important chakra, and that's the heart chakra. And it actually is the whole area here, but it's centered mostly here. And then we go further down. We go to the chakra of the solar plexus. It's here. And down beyond, and then there are 7 in total. So 4 of these are sort of higher and 3 are lower. And they correspond exactly to the quantum field energy that goes out of the crown chakra, goes around and goes up on the very bottom chakra, which is the chakra in the coccyx, which is the sitting bone. That is why it is so important that we are balanced in our sitting. Otherwise, the flow will stop and it will be uncomfortable in the beginning. What we gain in the end, I won't mention the body, but you minimize the risk of sciatica and those dreadful things and back pain. But I would say on the thinking part, Hammeroff says sitting slouch is an unthinking way of being. And he should know. He's been treating patients with thinking problems for ages. And I really like Hammeroff. He's one of those rather brute persons who doesn't care about the current dogma. I've seen it myself, so it's better just to point it out. An unthinking body attitude is being slouch, is not being on the sitting bones, because that diminish your possibility of making understanding with 80%. And we know the body and the mind system goes into repetition of thinking, not new thinking. It is actually impossible if you're not balancing up. What happens if you're not balancing up? Well, the whole system goes into a series of tensions that can be shown everywhere. And I would take the liberty to show one of those tensions here. Here, this is actually tension. No, leave the hands as they were. This is actually tension. And it is not a nervous habit. That tension emanates in the rest of the body. So it's actually a good thing to do what you did, because you're relieving some of the tensions. But the best, I do it myself, look here. The best way, though, is to be balanced. Then, little by little, the tensions will dissipate. And you will get a balanced system. That means, actually, in the end, that will mean that you get tension where it's due, where you need it. And one place you need tension is this area. It should be not tensed hard, but it should be at least having a bearing capacity on my body. And I noticed it was strenuous to stand on two legs like this, but it's getting easier and easier. Why is that? Well, the T1 muscles are growing, and those do not demand any energy. Look at the whole world, they don't have chairs, especially not those horrendous chairs of the tram company. That, I would say, is mind control. Because I felt I couldn't think. I was tilting backwards in a most unpleasant situation. What does the tram company want? Make a zombie out of me? I don't know. But sure, it wasn't pleasant. So there are different steps. In China, Japan, they would refuse to sit that way. They would stand instead. Better to stand than sit in that awkward position. Tilting your whole, I would say I felt it was tilting my soul. Tilting it out of presence. And oddly enough, this is what Stapp has concluded, and what we find from Penrose/Hammeroff is actually a finding of the soul. This is not, I don't want to prove the existence of the soul, that would be my area. But I think it's interesting that now we're getting into that region. Some people might need that, maybe Sture, I don't know. But otherwise they cannot believe until they see it is a physical explanation for it. Well, for me, my part, quantum physics as itself being so different from everything we know, I think that's quite enough for me to understand. There are higher things going on in reality, and our habit of ignoring it, it's a modus in itself. Ian McKillquist called that the attitude of the left hemisphere. We mentioned Torbjörn Tännsjö yesterday, and I just thought to myself, he had an attitude of not caring about anyone or anything in the world. And that is a body posture as well. Because once you block out, you won't feel the soul. Repetitions that we have in the left hemisphere, as I explained, when you are purely material, the repetitions are not very soul-like. Maybe you can say that iterations are soul-like because they build and make for permanence. But repetitions are more like strenuous, not very happy, not energetic. And this is one of the reasons often chakras are connected to energy. It is not a good word, but it gives you, so to say, stamina for the day, gives you possibility to, once one of these is open up, they open up in this region. This is usually not blocked, but this is often blocked. So the energy coming in cannot flow, and to open up the energy flow, the chakras going from the bottom to the top needs to be one by one opening up. Imagining them and recognizing them for their true colors is a very good start. I would mention the colors just briefly here. The crown chakra is violet. The eye chakra is blue.
We have the perfect ground here, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I could,
Yeah.
So we should imagine
It's
the
an
violet purple.
odd synchronicity. I seldom see books in violet. It's very unusual, and there are a multitude for reasons for that. It's not stable, so it will sort of be bleak in sunlight, and it doesn't look that nice. But here it's perfect. Wow, well done. It is also the seat of the spiritual, very fitting with Heidegger. He was indeed a spiritual man. Here it's more bluish, the eye chakra. Here we go to turquoise, green for the heart chakra. Solar plexus chakra is yellowish orangey. The chakra here, down the navel, down in the scrotum, is orange, and the coccyx chakra is deep red. See if I can learn how to add photos and those things to the YouTube presentation. Then you can click on a link, maybe, if that's possible, and see some sort of illustration of these things, because as you can see, even the illustration is wildly complicated. But I think it's needed. We need to understand how our bodies really work. Until that point, the change will happen not as frequent, but if we inform our thinking with the proper way of being, understanding point to point, how does this thing work? How does the connection with quantum entanglement, which is the effect that binds the universe together? Of course, it is in our soul, body, mind system as well. And how does that sort of creates its entities, like general information field and individual information field, called the chitta in Sanskrit, the body and the chi coming up and coming down. And once you learn to visualize the chakras in their true colors, you will also notice you can little by little open them up. And in the end, once you got at least 3 chakras open, the flow will be perceptible. Not until then. 3 needs to be open up, and there would be a revitalization of the body. And this is, of course, something that will make me understand a dilemma I had all my time in India and China and Japan. Why were people sitting so uncomfortable, I always thought? Because they never tilted. They sat like I don't know, like a statue. That is actually the only comfortable way of sitting, and it's the only one that promotes that very important thing of coherence. Because if there is no coherence between body, mind and soul, we don't work to our utmost. It is extremely unhealthy, often pointed out both by Hameroff and Penrose. But I think Stapp, sounds very interesting, also infers that. I saw that in the references. Okay, I say thank you very much, and I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Bye bye for now.
Thank you.